Cyborg Zombies. I'm here again, another video blog. This is CJ Carter, if you didn't already know. I've been the one who has been committing to paper Season 3 of the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which I've titled The Connor Wars. This is another in a series of video blogs where I just kind of prattle on for a while. Hopefully not as long as I did the last time, which was about an hour. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter for you. But I thought I'd do this, talk about a few things that might be of interest, and pretty much I'm just winging it, except for the notes that I have over here, not to the side over there, because looking off to the side was kind of weird. Obviously, the big news for the recent week has been the reporting that there is some interest in having a Sarah Connor Chronicles Season 3. This was originally reported by Lainey Grace on her site, and I linked to her site because her original reports and scoops from the last season were accurate. So unlike some people out there, I have decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. Since she first posted her rumor, or scoop, depending upon how it turns out, another blog has surfaced from a different source that is saying the same thing. So it's, in terms of journalism, this would pass the second source test. So for now, I'm going to consider it a valid story. As for the details, you know as much as I do. I have not been contacted by anybody connected with WB or Halcyon or Fox or anything. So yeah, it's kind of hard to know what to say about that. One of the main reasons I did start this project, and I was called out on this when I first started it, because if you recall, the first script was posted at the beginning of May, which was a while before the announcement was made whether or not Terminator was getting renewed. In fact, I posted the first 2 episodes before the announcement came. The reason I rushed it, and I was taken to task for this on a couple of websites, yes, I do peek in sometimes, was if there's the hope that Terminator will be renewed, why am I posting these before the announcement is made? And the reason I did it was because I wanted to show the powers that be what the possibilities were for the series. I wanted them to be able to see, not just in a broad description of this is what we're going to have John do and this is the story that we're going to take Sarah and Cameron and everybody else on. I wanted the people in the upper offices to be able to see what the story could be, how big you could make it, how epic it could become, as long as they were willing to spend a little bit of money, and as long as they were willing to have, and I hate to say this, but writers with a little bit broader view of what was happening. This was not a character study. This has always been a science fiction action piece, and a lot of us knew that. But for some reason, it got off course, not only in the series, but also for Terminator 4. From what has been reported in these scoops, is that the powers that be have recognized that going character was the wrong way, that they have to go action. Good. If I've contributed to that, way good to me. Now, as for what happens next? I mean, a lot of you have been giving me a lot of well wishes about how they should call me to write this. I don't want to be self-serving about this because I'm more goal-oriented than I am ego-oriented. I pretty much just want this stuff to get on the air. That said, in a perfect world, I would love it if they would contact me and say, CJ, we love your scripts. There's some things that we want to change because we want to take this series in a slightly different direction than what you're writing. But if you're willing to do that, we want you to spend the next however many months it is and write us the full season 3 based upon what we would like. And of course, unlike what I'm writing, I would have to stick to a budget. Would I say yes? Oh, just ask me. I understand why they wouldn't want to. I understand all of the legal ramifications of everything, both in concern with fanfic and Writer Guild's rules, and that's really the one that they're going to stumble on a little bit. Because if what Lainey has been saying is true and they want to basically take what I've been writing, then they need to call me. I mean, it's not like I'm going to hold them up or anything. I mean, how could I? I hardly have a leg to stand on. But the Writers Guild does have certain quaint little notions about stuff, and it might be better to resolve those beforehand rather than later, because I'm pretty easy about all of this stuff. I mean, would I like to write all of this? I mean, unless they tell me to stop, I'm writing all of this. But would I like to write it all? You know, since there seems to be a lot of lead time, sure, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, I certainly couldn't run a show. I've never even been on a TV staff, so I mean, I knew nothing about running a show. But I do know people who have, so who are friends of mine, so maybe I could work something out. But I'm not pressing that. I'm just saying that it would be in their best interest to contact me at some point, sooner rather than later, just to make sure that there aren't any problems later, so that there are no misunderstandings. Not only by me, because I pretty much know how all of this works, so I mean, they aren't going to get any big trouble from me, but from you guys. Why? Some of the scoopage that has come has said that they recognize that they made a mistake. They misjudged the audience, and they don't want to make another one to lose the audience for the franchise. I've already posted 8 episodes, and you all have read it. So, you know, and it's archived however many times on the interweb, because that's what it does. So they can't hardly put this on and have anything vaguely similar to what I've written without you getting up in arms if they haven't at least talked to me a little bit, just as a courtesy. And I would hate for all of this to fall apart just because of a lack of communication. I can't contact them because fanfic is a weird thing. There are accepted guidelines as to how it works, and the minute I contact them, I have to stop. If they contact me, they can tell me to keep going. So it's kind of that sort of deal. They turn a blind eye. Their problem is that even though this is a derivative work under copyright law, U.S. copyright law, and they own the rights to all of it, the stories are still mine. So it raises a sticky specter, like I said, with the guild and all of that. So, yeah. Not going to cause trouble. I just know what the landscape is. And unless anything changes, I'm writing to however long it takes to end this story. Okay, so I don't want to belabor the scoopage, rumors, whatever, too long. Uh, I will be posting links as they occur and updates as they occur, but for the most part, I'm pretty much as out of it as you are. Unless I'm contacted so that I have something new to add, I'm not worried about it. My only job is to write the scripts. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to worry about any of the rest of it. I'm not going to really speculate. I'm not going to fantasize. I'm just looking at the scripts, and I have a job of work in front of me as it is. As I've already tweeted, the time between episode 4 and 8, that's 5 episodes, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, in case you didn't believe me, took place in a span of 10 days in 2027, from April 12th to April 22nd. That means that in a span of 5 scripts, I am spending 2 days their time per script. Obviously, if I want to get to the end of my story, that isn't going to work. I'm going to have to speed things up a lot. And as a result, for the past couple of days, I have been going back over my timelines. I've been going back over my story plots for all the episodes. And I'm kind of shuffling things around a little bit. I don't think I'm taking out anything. I don't think I've taken out a darn thing. But I've been moving things around. I've been adding some things that I really want to add. Some characters that I think need to have their just due. And making sure that things are happening at the relative place and time that they should be happening. But that means that we aren't going to get a nice leisurely progression of John Connor becoming John Connor. It means I'm going to have to speed up that process a little bit. I mean, it's not going to happen right away. But in their time, while it will seem fast, it isn't rushed. In our time, it could seem rushed because I've kind of spoiled you with the first 8 episodes going so methodically. And again, this is another area where it would be good if Warner's and Halcyon contacted me, because if they want me to keep working on this, I mean, even if they don't want me working on the series or whatever, that's fine. But if they want me to keep doing the fanfic, but they want me to change the pace of it, they'd have to call me and we'd have to arrange something, because I got to tell you, this takes an awful lot of time. As I've written about, not only is it taking up all of my free time, but it's even taking up some of my non-free time. So planning for 22 episodes, a full season, is a hunk of time. It's going to take me through at least to the end of January. And then I still have probably another month or two at least to finish the story the way that I want to finish it. So we're talking probably until March, maybe a little longer. That is a lot of time to be writing, because you figure in every month I'm writing what would pass for a complete Hollywood screenplay, if not a little bit more. That would be 12 screenplays a year, and let me tell you, for a writer, that is a lot of screenplays. This is why television shows have staffs of 5 or 6 writers, so that nobody has to write more than 4 or 5 scripts in a season, because it's a lot of work. And I'm giving you one every 2 weeks. I'm glad I can do it. But if you want me to slow down, it has to be echoed by the powers that be. They need to tell me to slow down, and this is one of those cases that they'd have to give me a reason why I should keep writing it after what I've already planned for, because this is taking up time away from the art that I do, because I do art. It's not cheap art. And I have done none of it since April, and that hurts me. My family has been kind enough to indulge me in this little endeavor. So they let a lot of things slide, and they've picked up a little bit of the slack that I haven't been able to be as attentive to as I have been. And I'm doing it because I want to see the end of this story. I think it's a really cool story. And I know you all want to see the end of the story. I know you all want to see how it develops. And I know that you are starting to guess about what might happen because you're starting to get into kind of how I think a little bit. Good for you. And I have to tell you that some of the things that you're guessing, sometimes they're right. I will tell you that more often than not, they're not what I have planned. And I'm not going to tell you which ones are which. Because at this moment, like I say, since I'm restructuring the season, I'm not quite sure how everything's playing out again. I have changed some of the details even with me. Some of what I had planned out aren't quite what they were going to be when I came up with the whole thing in the first few weeks of this. And I told you before that I do revisit my signposts as I write. I like to make sure that everything is meshing. And this also brings into account the characters that, like Brandy, that I hadn't expected to be as well-rounded as they turned out to be. Maybe making more of an impact in some ways. I do have to say that with the compression of time that I've been remapping, it's tight. And I mean that in both ways. Both in the story is compact. There is wham bang in every episode, so I'm almost guaranteed of not having a clunker. Almost. Never underestimate me. I could have a really horrendous episode. But it's also tight in the way that Cameron says something is tight, when she knows what it's tight means in the context of which she's speaking, which is only about half the time. If that makes any sense. Anyway, what I'm doing now, it's tight. It's kind of compressing how long I have to write the next script because I'm taking time out from my normal rhythm to do this. I did do some of this previously when I finished episode 6. And to tell you the truth, as I was looking at episode 9, I was going, you know, it's a little thin. I might as well take this opportunity to try to fix everything that I want to fix. And then just make a dash for the end. Because it's the middle of August now. And if I'm going to be writing with little in the way of breaks until at least the end of January, I really need to have this planned out so that I can be thinking about it as I go along. So, in my notes here, I kind of thought that I might talk about the process that I use a little bit. First, I'm going to take a little drink. Again, it's a desert. Okay. I think a lot of you will be very amazed to learn that let me restate that. Of the 8 scripts I've written, 5 of them that you have seen are pretty darn close to being first drafts. I've corrected some of the language and moved a scene here or two, but not much has changed. And so basically, that's what it looks like when it comes out of my head, and I've typed it up. Not a lot of editing. The other 3, however, I've changed as many as 30 pages out of my usual 48. So, yeah, sometimes I do rewrite myself pretty severely. I'll go, okay, I've written all of that. It doesn't work. I have to change it. Episode 8, for example, that is essentially a first draft. I changed a couple of words after I typed it out but other than that, it's a first draft. That being said, while I was typing it out, I would type out a scene, especially the scenes that were concerning Buttercup and Allison and Weaver. I type them out and I go, well, that's crap. And I type it again. Basically the same information, but presented a little bit differently. And that's kind of how it goes most of the time. Actually, usually I just type out the scene. What you see is a lot of what you get. I'm pretty good about that. That's why I work so hard on outlines and why I try to plan out things, because if I know where I'm going, typing it out isn't so hard. It's more dictation than anything. But it isn't immediate. It takes time. Okay, so how is it that I do this? First off, my biggest resource is something that I don't even reference. But it is what has allowed me to be able to do this. And that is the second season reviews that I did this season. See, what would happen? The episode would air. Immediately after it aired, unless it was a really good episode of Battlestar coming up, immediately after it aired, I would record the podcast. And immediately after I did the podcast, I would write the blog. So basically my Friday nights were just a chunk of writing. And if you'll excuse me, I have to blow my nose or I'm going to sneeze all over this camera. Okay. So in order to do that, when I watched the shows, I really watched the shows. I mean, there was a kind of a standing rule when I was watching Terminator, is that you could not disturb me, because I was basically memorizing the show, and during the commercial breaks, I was coming up with my analysis. So that when the podcast came and my fan cast came, and I was doing the voiceover over the episode, I was doing my brain dump. I was improvising it as I was watching it. There was no pre-analysis like you would expect. A lot of these shows, podcasts, they get released a week after the episode airs. They had plenty of time to think about it, mull over the problems, maybe drop in on other websites. Me, not so much. I saw it, I spouted, I wrote about it. Writing the blog helped me, the fan cast helped me write the blog, because that's kind of where I thought out loud and I came up with things that I was going to write in the blog. So in a very condensed period, I was basically committing into my head each of the episodes of the second season. So that really tied it in. Plus there was all the extra blogs that I used for the extra analysis. You know, what were different character motivations, what were my speculations of where they were going, you know, things like that. So I was pretty good about all of that. So that was my foundation when I started all of this. And then I've made the outlines and everything. So my process for a script, starting from after I finished getting you all settled in with the current script, I take a day off, because I need the day off, not only for my head, but also grocery shopping must be done, and laundry and things like that. So after that day off, that one day, for the next 2 or 3 days, I outline what the next episode's going to be. I have a good idea of what the future plot is without a problem. It's pretty clear. So I write down everything that needs to happen, and then I start working on what has to happen with all the characters. Where are they in the story? What are they thinking? Who are they allied with? And this is all for the future segment. The future segment I generally term as the A story. The only exception was with episode 7, where Sarah was the A story. But for the most part, the A story is the future story. So I work on that first. I try to outline it so that it's going to come out to about 25, 30 pages, ideally 30 pages. After I do that, and I think I have what I need, and that's usually about at least 20 scenes, better 30, then I work on the B story, which is the story that's in the past. And I have a lot of stories lined up. Which ones I pluck out to write in that past story, it's kind of iffy. There really is no rhyme or reason to it, unless I want to echo something in the past that occurs in the future, or if I have to set up something that's going to happen in, if not this episode, in some other future episode, which I've already done several times, and it will pay off eventually. So, 2 to 3 days for the outline. As soon as I finish outlining, and I mean as soon as I finish outlining, I start writing the script. I typically write each of the stories separately. I write my A story, I write the B story. If I need a C story, I write that in then, and then I find out where I am. I didn't do that for the first episode. First episode was written in order, and when you're bouncing between the two storylines, it's very confusing, even more confusing than normal. So I write each story, and that way they're complete. They have a beginning, middle, and end structure, so I know I don't skip out on that. I know that each of the sub-stories within each of those stories has their structure, and everything is set. So after they're written, and along the way, I know what some of the transitional scenes are. I know that I'm going to skip, say, if I'm in a battle. I'm going to have this battle scene here, and I know that I'm going to insert a scene from the past in between this and the next scene, which is going to be in the same setting, just a little bit later. Or it'll be a scene break. You know, I know it's going to happen, so I kind of make a mental note that, you know, I can do that. So after all of the different A, B, C, sometimes a D story are set up, then I just shuffle them in. My screenwriting software, and I do not use Final Draft. I don't like Final Draft at all. I find it limiting. I use Movie Magic Screenwriter. Part of the reason is that I started with a program called Script Thing. When I shifted to screenwriting software, I used to write in WordStar. But when I first shifted to screenwriting software, I used Script Thing. And I think I started with version 1.03b or something like that. I was really at the very beginning of it. And this is a DOS program. That's how far back I've been doing this. And it's since been bought out and everything, but it's still philosophically the same program, and I find it way easier to use and much more flexible than Final Draft. I have fewer export options than Final Draft does, but that hasn't been important to me, so I like Screenwriter. So anyway, I take my outline was done in Screenwriter as I'm typing, and so my script is typed out with all of my outline notes, and that allows me to shuffle my scenes because Screenwriter allows me to just pluck up a scene heading and just move it to a different place. I don't have to do a lot of selecting or anything like that. So it's very quick. Once I've written my pages, which is usually about 48 to 50, that's what I shoot for, then I just shuffle everything around. After I do that, then I read the script for the first time to see how it reads as an episode. Very often there will be some scenes that I have to shift around. At this point, sometimes I realize that a story is not going to work at all. And case in point, the first episode. The B story, the Sarah storyline in the first episode, is not the first story that was written. Some of those elements have been reinserted since then. Notably, the stuff about the vault. That was largely in the first episode. The first episode in the B story started the moment after Weaver and John had chronoported out. And we went on from there. And that just didn't work at all. So I rewrote all of it. It's happened a few times. So I read through the script and fix everything that I think needs to be fixed. And then, assuming she's available, and she's usually available, I give it to Mom. The script has to pass the Mom test because she loved the series too. So she reads it next. And partly it's because she's been reading my screenplays for, gosh, 20 years now. And she's used to reading screenplays. She knows the visual language, and it makes it a lot easier for me, for her to be able to give me feedback right away. Because I know I don't have to wait a long time. I give her the script, and usually by the time I come back to her, seeing if it's done, she's already read it. So if she has any small problems, and so far they've only been small problems, then I go in and I polish it up. Often I already have something in my head that needs to be fixed. For example, one script I gave her a screenplay that after I moved everything around, I had accidentally deleted one scene, so I had to put it back in. Oops. Because it confused her that something was missing. And usually I know that I have to add something here or there just to bump it up a little bit. So anyway, after that, then I do the polish, and then I post it and link into everything, and that's basically it. That's usually on the 14th day. Sometimes I'm fast enough, especially the script was an easy script to write, and I didn't have a lot to do in life that I had to tend to that took me away from writing. Get it done in 12. So, I'm sorry, I wrote in my notes, lather, rinse, repeat. It just makes me smile. And then we just start the process all over again. So, yeah, it surprises a lot of people that, especially when I screenwrite. It's less so when I write like short stories or novels or stuff like that. Those get worked a lot. But when I write screenplays, especially teleplays, Zoom, it's usually pretty much done off the first draft. And that's what you're reading. That's what's coming out of my head. The reason it can do that is because, like a lot of writers, I sit at my computer for a lot of hours not writing. J.K. Rowling is very famous for becoming an expert in Minesweeper. I'm improving my skills in Bejeweled Blitz. That's found on Facebook. To the outside world, that looks like wasting time. The fact of the matter is it accomplishes two things. When you first start doing it, it helps clear your head because you're concentrating on the game. But soon enough, the problems that you're having with the script or the scenes that are coming up start filtering in, and they start distracting you from the game. So you try to push it out of your mind again. And you play the game a little bit more, and they creep back in with more urgency until it gets to the point where you have to write these things. And once you start writing them, they come out pretty fully fleshed because they've been mulling in your head for an extra hour or two. And that's why I can not have to do a lot of rewrites on these things. I will also say it helps that I've been writing scripts for a couple of decades now, and I've learned a lot of the things that you don't want to do when you write a script. So I don't do them. I've learned how not to do them before they actually get done, so I don't have things to fix. Not that I don't have bad habits that I constantly have to go through the script and fix. I use the to be verbs way too much, and then I have to go back and make them action verbs because screenplays are visual, so you have to have a lot of action verbs. Okay, so before I leave, see, I'm going to try to keep this shorter than last time. I'm not sure I'm going to make it. I'm looking at the clock up on the wall, high up on the wall, and it's starting to run a little close. But as long as I'm here, I might as well talk a little bit about Episode 8, Saving Allison. Some of you have mentioned that this had a lot of elements that echoed Allison from Palmdale. That wasn't how this script evolved. This was kind of a bumpy script. I wrote the A story, and none of the Allison flashbacks were in there. The main reason they got in there was because, frankly, I was short of pages. I was 6.5 pages short after I'd finished my C story. And that's not good. That's a hunk of pages to have to kind of fill up. So I thought and I thought, and I mused and I mused, and then it hit me, the muse. I rely on my muses. When you hear me talk about the muses, know that I thank them all the time. I know that it ain't up to me. I'm not this good. So, the muse said, "Look at your notes, you idiot." So I looked at my notes for Allison, because after all, she was just kind of lying there in Buttercup's arms, crushed into a ball. So I looked at my notes in history that I had for Allison, and I went, whoa, I should put in some of the history that I have for Allison, like why she's so deathly afraid of endos. Because it had never been explained before, and I told you I tend not to explain things. But this was the perfect time, because I was having her show a little bit of gumption from time to time, but for the most part she was pretty passive. She was letting Buttercup kind of do what Buttercup did. And the suggestion from the muse for me to put in Allison's history as to why she got damaged and traumatized about endos, but still could fight on. Very important element. So it was kind of an accidental slipping into Allison from Palmdale thing. It's going to be a little bit of a spoiler. Not a big spoiler, a little bit of a spoiler. I'm not going to tell you anything specific. But one episode that is coming up, not soon, but it is coming up, is basically Allison's Allison from Palmdale, at least in part. It's intended to be that. I mean, that's my whole reason for writing the episode. There are a lot of other things in the episode, just like there were in Allison from Palmdale, because curiously enough, as much as we think of Allison from Palmdale as being a Cameron, Allison, Summer Glau episode, for that part of the season, she wasn't in any more scenes than she was in any of the previous episodes that season. Kind of amazing, isn't it? It seemed like more. But she got more screen time, which was the difference. Minutes increased, but the number of scenes didn't increase. So there is a story coming up that will be more like that. But as I said, this season, because I want to reach a certain point by episode 22, I'm going to have to speed up a lot. Because I would love to be able to write this forever. I mean, I could get another 2 or 3 seasons just on John's growth into becoming the John Connor. I mean, that really wouldn't take an awful lot of creative effort on my part. But it takes a time effort on my part, and I just don't have that to give. I can give you until about spring of 2010. And after that, I better have wrapped this up, because I'm going to have things that I have to do, unless something else comes up. So, I hope you all will forgive me for shortening up the story and breaking the pace. I would love to be able to kind of keep it at the same pace that we've been at, and kind of let this progress through a season 4 and a season 5. I'd love to do that. But again, it's a personal thing, and I need to be able to finish that. I don't want to leave you hanging, because, and this is not a lot of ego involved, but I have read a lot of fanfic in my time, and you all know that at this point that even though this is fanfic, it isn't slash, it isn't shipper, it isn't any of that. This is somebody writing professional scripts that, according to the rumors, have garnered enough respect with the franchise holders that they are impressed by what I have done, assuming this is true. So, I want to give you the best stories I can. So I have two choices. I can either tell it slow and tell you an incomplete story, but nobody else would finish it, and that seems wrong. Or I can speed things up, hit all of the huge story points that are coming up in the next 14 episodes, and give you something that finishes. And you can kind of see why I got so angry at Josh last year, because he was wasting time. I mean, look at how much I'm having to shove into just 14 more episodes. I mean, I don't have enough. I don't know how you could shove it into the last 2 or 3 episodes of a season. It's crazy. Off the soapbox, I really don't want to disparage people. I really don't. Read my reviews. I disparaged enough there. I got angry enough. So, there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, boy, I'm really bumping into this talking for a long time thing, aren't I? Oh, well. This has, going back to the scoopage and the rumors stuff, from Lainey's blog, what she reported that her sources have said is that my material was 80 to 85% of what they wanted. However, their plan was for John to be in the future for a little bit and then have him go back to the past. I wanted to kind of explain a little bit why I didn't do that, because obviously that was an option that I had. When I was outlining this, I had a lot of decisions to make. And one of the decisions was, how long was I going to stay in the future? I could, I had already heard the rumors that they had planned to only stay in the future for 3 or 4 episodes and then go back and start fixing things. And that to me just raised my fictional time travel alarm button, alert antenna. See, because if John goes to the future, learns what he needs to learn, and then goes back in time, the minute he goes back in time, he's changed his future again, so what he learned is irrelevant to what he needs to do in the past. He just learns what a previous mistake was, but now he doesn't know what his current mistakes are. He also doesn't know if he fixed the future. So if I keep John in the future and have Sarah stuck in the past, John can finish it. He can stop all of the madness. He can't stop Judgment Day that way, true. But as I wrote, just because Jessie was crazy doesn't mean she was right. She said, I'm not here to stop Judgment Day. I'm here to stop Skynet, to win the war. And I'm sorry that was the wrong accent. I should have chosen Australian. My bad. My Australian accent's better than it used to be, but it's still kind of iffy. It tends to go more Walpole on it. So, for that reason, I chose to keep John in the future. An attendant reason was because we hadn't seen a lot of the future. And there were an awful lot of possibilities in that world, not just in flash forwards, into things that weren't going to happen anymore, because they were kind of flash forward flashbacks. There were things that did happen but aren't going to happen again. So they, in some ways, really kind of weren't relevant. So I wanted to stay in the future so that we could see more of Kyle. Who was Kyle? Honestly, I wasn't too hot about seeing more of Derek. Derek was never one of my favorite characters. I thought they kept him around too long. You know, because he was redundant. There were other characters that could do what he did. So, as a writer, you don't want to have redundant characters. Typically, if I have redundant characters, I send them away or I kill them off. So a lot of my characters get killed off. But I also wanted to look at Allison. See, a lot of this is that I didn't want to do a lot of the story that had already been done. We've already told John in the 2000s, 2010s. We've already told that story. We've already told John with Cameron in the past. I thought we all like Allison. I love Allison. Why don't we see who Allison is before she died and not kill her? Why don't we see who John could become in the future? Why don't we see who Cameron was in the future? Because assuming John ever meets up with Cameron, this is going to seem so familiar to her. You would think, unless she gets all amnesic on us. But that's a soap opera trick, and I don't like those. It's like the notes that fall under tables, never accidentally, never to be seen. I hate that too. So, I mean, there was a lot to be said about keeping John in the future and not traveling back to the past. Budget-wise, special effects-wise, it was going to be way more expensive to do. That was a problem for me, and you can see me trying to tackle it in the first couple of scripts until I decided I was going to just throw out the budget and just have everything be as expensive as it was. Not that I can't write to budget, but I don't have a budget to write to, so I'm not. So I had all of these pluses for keeping John in the future versus sending him back to the past and just doing the same old stuff that I've been doing. Yeah, I lose out on location work, but I'm not repeating the story. I mean, now, with John not in the past, we have a totally different story. We have Sarah Connor having to fight a war for John without John being there. She doesn't have a Terminator at her side protecting anything. So hers is an entirely different story as well. And this was a lot of fun. And I have to say that if Halcyon wants the story, I hope they don't send John back to the past. I know they kind of want to do it so they can do a Terminator 5. And honestly, if they want a Terminator 5 that's based upon a world that I'm doing, let me tell you, you can have that. I'll write it to episode 22. We agree on whatever we want. You want a Terminator 5 to follow John afterwards that? To finish up the story? Or to keep the story going on? I can do that too. That's my pitch. That's me being a salesman. And because I would really like to do that. I wouldn't mind doing that at all. Because you know how well I write now. You know I can keep up the pace. You know I have a professional level of script. And you know that I'm not going to screw around with your characters in an unprofessional way. I'll screw around with them in a very professional way. I'll kill people randomly if necessary. But professionally. So, well, I'm doing a really poor job of keeping this short, aren't I? I thought I had a short list here, and I really, really did, and I kept on yammering. But there are things that needed to be said. So there's that. That's why I have the structure of the tale that I have. That's why John didn't go back to the past, as I had already known that they had kind of planned to do. Josh had already let that cat out of the bag. I just didn't want to do the same story. He's like John fighting in the past with an Endo by his side and all of that. That's Terminator 2 and Terminator 3 and Sarah Connor Chronicles Seasons 1 and 2. And it's been done. Let's do something new. Something new that the fans, you people know this stuff just as well as I do. Better sometimes because you keep reminding me of things. Because my mind is getting kind of muddled between the things that happen and the things that I see that are going to happen. These are the sorts of things that you're enjoying. I'm obviously telling the story right. And not only are you enjoying it, but I'm not insulting you. I'm giving you the correct story. I'm not breaking continuity. I have a reason for everything that I'm doing. I agonize over the choices I have to make sometimes, like Allison's birthday. And a couple of you said, only one publicly, that I shouldn't worry about it so much, that it doesn't really matter, but it does. Because I have to have it codified so that when it does come up, I know I haven't broken the continuity 12 episodes before. Because that would be bad. Because that means now I have to do something intentionally. And sometimes I can work my way out of it. As I noted on episode 1, I had a continuity error, the only one that I found. Because somebody sent me back to a part of the script, and John said that refer back to Terminator 2, when he was 12, when he was really 12. And I had to change his age in order to actually conform to the continuity that I fixed as to when Terminator 2 actually happened. So I had to change his age a little bit for that. And I think it's the only continuity error that I've made so far. I could be wrong. Like I say, it's a first draft. I could make errors all over the place. But that's also why I plan. So that's where we are. That's how I write the episodes. That's where we are on the rumors. A little bit of what happened the last time. I'm not going to tell you any spoilers this time because, frankly, I don't know where everything's falling. And I will say that everything that I've told you that's a spoiler before will probably be a spoiler still. Just maybe not quite 100% in the way that I had planned when I told you the spoiler. But probably they are, because I'm really not changing that much. It's just some shuffling around and getting into my head where people are in terms of dates. Honestly, I was the 3-episode arc for the battle was all supposed to take place all at once. Allison getting kidnapped was supposed to happen later, but because I had shuffled episodes, because episode 7 was going to be episode 8, episode 7 was one that I hadn't worked out yet, and when I knew what I was going to do in it, it fit where it fit. So instead of happening like a month or two afterwards, it happened right on the heels of. So it only added another few days to what I had already done. So I had this great big block of not much time passing. And honestly, John's only been there for, right now, I think 2 months. I have to look at my timeline again, but I think it's just 2 months right now from the time he and Weaver came in to now. So I've got to move this thing along. And I hope you'll forgive me for that. I hope I don't jar you too much about how much time passes and how quickly characters change or disappear suddenly, or situations change, strategic and planning and all of that. I'll try to make it smooth. You know I will. I'll try. So we got that. We got the rumors. You know what I'm doing. No spoilers. Talked about the last episode, and I've made my little sales pitch. If anybody from Halcyon or Warner's is watching, or anybody connected with them who gets a message to them, whatever. So you know what the deal is. So keep up the linkage. Thank you for clicking on the ads. The Google ads are really good too. Thank you for not only linking to my stuff and tweeting and all of that. I appreciate it a lot. I also appreciate that you've sent me links to these things, to people mentioning me and this little work that I have been doing. It's nice to know that it's spreading out, that the word is getting out and we're reaching people. Oh, I also want to say September, the Season 2 DVDs are getting released. Please buy them. Get your friends to buy them. Buy extra, give them as gifts, whatever. Whether Season 2 is renewed may depend a little bit on DVD sales, so go for it. Buy lots. If you can, find my link on my site. I wrote a blog that had the pre-order for Sarah Connor Season 2. Click on that and make your sale through that, through the referral service. Makes the site some money, keeps the site up, keeps CJ happy, keeps him with the possibility of spending a little more time on it. Makes it easier. Again, it makes me no money. I have no profit whatsoever. Won't for a long, long time. But this is fun. I have to say it's the most fun I've had writing in like ever. I love writing for TV. Okay, so I have no idea how long I've talked now. It's got to be 50 minutes, 55. And I'm sorry for keeping you here that long. It's kind of dull, just watching a head talk. If I remember, I'll try to add little graphics onto this thing to make things interesting. So, my cyborg zombies, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with this. And until the next blog, whether it be video or typed, or the next script, however this turns out, I hope you have a happy, healthy, and hearty life. And I'll try to do the same. And I'm going to try to get this next script out as fast as I can and make it a good one. So I'll see you soon. Goodbye.